I have my husband wrapped around my finger now. Ah, being beautiful is such a sin. What? That's a lie. You didn't notice until now? Well, he's mine now. Richard falls for this woman, and with that, everything we've built up until now comes crashing down. Is Richard really okay with this? More importantly, does he even understand what's going on? Everything goes dark before my eyes. My name is Taylor, a 45-year-old woman this year. Currently, I work as a yoga instructor in the suburbs of Tokyo. When people hear yoga instructor, they might imagine something glamorous. But that's usually only for young female instructors. To be honest, older instructors like myself in their 50s don't usually have that much popularity. That's why my life depends on my husband's income. My husband Richard is 48 years old, older than me. At 48, most people worry about the results of their health checkup and are fearful of being diagnosed with a metabolic syndrome. But Richard is different. He has a radiant complexion, full head of hair, and most importantly, a toned body that's free from a metabolic syndrome at the age of 48. He's my proud husband. When I show Richard's photo to my classmates at the yoga studio, most people are surprised and end up comparing him to their own husbands. That's why I always start with a sales pitch, like, if you bring your husband to my yoga class, he'll transform into someone who looks like this. It's become a staple for me. Richard and I met through my work as a yoga instructor with him as my student. Outside of work, I'm a housewife who takes care of things while he's away. That's been my daily routine, and I thought it would continue like that until that woman showed up. Our daily lives changed completely because of her. It all started with a regular yoga trial course. One day, I recognized from somewhere was in the class. I wonder if I met her before. If she's a former student, it would be rude not to say hello, I thought to myself, struggling to remember where I had seen her before. But I just couldn't seem to remember, even though I thought I was good at remembering faces. I started feeling down, thinking maybe I'm getting old and can't remember people's faces anymore. But looking back now, maybe deep down, I didn't want to remember her. Because she was such a terrible woman. The answer came from her. During a break, the same woman came up to me and started talking. Long time no see. Hey, do you remember me? When I saw her grinning face, I finally remembered. This woman in front of me was my classmate, Alan. Alan and I grew up in the same neighborhood and played together since we were little. Alan, who was cute and adorable in both her appearance and behavior, was well known in our town, and people used to say this girl could become an idol in the future. It sounds like a parent's exaggeration, but she really was popular among people in our town at the time. And Alan's reputation was outstanding in another sense. She would take people's belongings without permission, from favorite erasers to umbrellas and dolls. It was just the beginning. As she grew older, stealing someone's boyfriend became an everyday occurrence. That's why she was highly regarded by men but greatly disliked by women. And to tell the truth, I was one of those who disliked Alan. Having known her since childhood and being close to her family, I was her primary victim of theft. And now she's right in front of me. Alan's family moved away when we were in junior high, and we lost touch after that. How on earth did she find out about me? Although I had a bad feeling inside, I kept my usual business smile on my face. Could it be Alan? Long time no see. Of course I remember you, I said with a forced smile. I moved to this town, you know, and when I saw the poster for the yoga class, I thought I've seen that face before. But looks don't matter for a yoga instructor, huh? If someone like you can do it, then I might be able to do it too. This woman hasn't changed, even at this age. Listening to the words that came out of Alan's mouth, I quickly realized. And today, at the trial class, I decided not to mention my husband in my usual sales talk. It's no joke to have my life partner stolen at this age, and the woman who could do such a thing is Alan. It happened after the trial class that day. I was caught trying to leave quickly to avoid Alan and ended up having a late lunch with her. As soon as we sat down, Alan's endless boasting began under the guise of updating me on her life. Apparently, she had a hard time with many men hitting on her after moving and was even scouted by a certain idol agency. Alan kept talking forever, with stories that were hard to tell whether they were true or false, ignoring her lunch. As the conversation dragged on, it seemed she just wanted to show off her current life. You know, living on the top floor of a tower apartment isn't as great as it sounds. The elevator rides are long and the people living on the lower floors are always making snide remarks. It's the worst, right? But what's even worse is my husband. He's a lawyer and makes good money, but his looks. He's the same age as me and a fat, out-of-shape guy. Well, thanks to him, I could be a stay-at-home wife. But being a stay-at-home wife is tough too. Oh, you wouldn't be able to handle that kind of life, would you? I mean, even at your age, you're still a yoga instructor. While saying it's the worst, her face was clearly soaked in a sense of superiority. Wasn't that husband of hers stolen from someone else too? Suppressing the urge to say that, I quietly played the listener. If I didn't react interestingly, Alan would get bored, or so I thought. Did you manage to get married? What? Really? What kind of person is your husband? Is he a plain, unattractive, out-of-shape guy like you? I could not help but get angry at Alan's words that seemed to mock me. I felt that my happy, precious days were being denied by her words. And above all, I wanted to see Alan's reaction when I showed her my husband. My husband is 48 years old this year, but he does not look it at all right. He often gets mistaken as someone in their 20s by my students. He works for a foreign financial institution and his earnings are, well, decent for that industry, I guess. Alan stared intently at the photo of my husband I showed her while saying this. As I looked at Alan's face, I felt both regret for having done it and a small sense of victory over Alan. But that feeling of victory was fleeting. Wow, I might like this guy. I had done it. Alan's words were a signal that she had found her prey. My sense of superiority over Alan disappeared immediately, leaving only regret. But it's okay. She doesn't know where I live or my contact information yet. If I leave without telling her anything, it'll be fine. Suppressing my rising anxiety, I continued to chat casually with Alan, pretending nothing was wrong. Of course, beneath our casual conversation was a battle between Alan trying to get more information about my husband and me trying to avoid it. I managed to end the conversation without giving Alan any information. I felt relieved that it worked out and went home that day, but Alan started coming to my yoga classes more often, trying to learn more. Each time I dodged Alan's questions and eventually started avoiding conversation with her altogether. Perhaps, sensing my attitude, one day Alan suddenly stopped coming to the yoga classes. I did it. That woman finally gave up. We may have been successful when we were younger, but now we're both middle-aged women in our 40s. There's no way things will go our way at this age. Serves her right. I grabbed a sense of victory this time and made a small victory pose. However, at that time, the real winner was not me, but Alan, because she had already gotten close to my husband, Richard. After that, my peaceful everyday life continued for a while. I sweated as a yoga instructor and devoted myself to housework as a good wife, supporting Richard at home. It was so peaceful that I completely forgot about Alan's recent visit. In retrospect, it must have been the calm before the storm. While I was spending my days in peace, I was slightly concerned about the change in Richard's attitude. Sorry, I don't need a lunchbox for a while. I'm going to have lunch with a client. Or, sorry, I've been busy with work lately. I'll be home late, so eat dinner without me. Oh, I forgot. I'll eat dinner on the way home, so don't worry about my portion. He used to prioritize family over home and come home right away. But if it's work, there's nothing I can do. Richard's hard work might lead to a better treatment at work. As a wife who protects the home, all I can do is support Richard. Besides, at the same time, I started teaching a new evening course at the yoga studio, so I didn't have much time to think deeply about it. So I believed what Richard said. And at the time, I believed that both of us being busy with work was a good thing and didn't doubt it. In hindsight, I was really stupid. One day, after a busy stretch, Ellen appeared at the yoga studio. During class, for some reason, she kept giving me a smug look. It was the face that I hated the most. Class ended, and as I was cleaning up alone, Ellen came over. Mocking my defensive stance and with a confident smile, she said, "Your husband is such a wonderful man, isn't he? His gestures while eating are cool, and his dimples when he laughs are so cute. Oh, did you know he has a funny mole on his back, that guy?" So that's what it was. The reason this woman disappeared from my sight wasn't that she had given up on my husband Richard, but that she had already succeeded in getting close to him. The gestures while eating and the dimples when laughing mean they have shared meals together many times? Could it be that Richard not taking his lunchbox with him lately is because of that? But the bigger issue is the funny mole on his back. If I connect the fact that he showed her his back and that Richard has been coming home late recently smelling like soap, the answer is obvious. This woman has already slept with Richard many times. I shuddered. What are you suddenly saying? Besides, I don't remember introducing you to my husband, so why are you meeting Richard? Aren't you stupid? Even if you don't tell me, I can find out from the other students in the class. You are such a fool. I just asked those students for your address, staked it out for a few days, and I knew everything about your husband. After all, you have that photo of the husband you boast and show off. Now Richard is captivated by me. Being beautiful is like a sin. No, that can't be. Didn't you notice until now? I'm taking him. Richard will be taken by this woman. If that happens, everything I've built up until now will be gone. Is Richard really okay with that? Rather, does he even understand what's going on? My vision went dark. As I thought about the possibility of losing everything we had built together and Richard's feelings, Ellen left, laughing at me, clutching my stomach in disbelief. I was left alone in the classroom. Calm down and ask Richard for confirmation. It could just be Ellen's delusion. More than anything, I wanted to confirm Richard's true feelings. What will he do with everything we've built up so far? And above all, what do you think of me now? That day, when I confronted Richard after he returned home, he easily said, "Sorry, everything Ellen said is true. I might have done something wrong to you, but you're the one who's bad. Your cooking is always tasteless, and you never compliment me when I come home from work. Besides, you always order me around, telling me to exercise and use this lotion. In contrast, Ellen is kind. Unlike you, she always tells me I'm cool and her cooking is delicious. It's so different from you." Wait a minute. The seasoning of the dishes and the exercise. It's all for you. And yet you talk like that. What about the promises we made about work? You said at the time. Richard interrupted me and yelled, "Shut up! It's all your fault. You're always bossing me around, telling me to do this and that. I don't need a woman like you anymore." We're married, aren't we? Let's just talk it out properly. I have my reasons for asking you to do various things. You're so annoying. Enough already. Today I'm going to Ellen's house. Ellen is different from you. She's kind and doesn't boss me around. With that, Richard left the house. Left alone, I sighed. I never thought Richard felt that way. It's true that I've asked Richard for various things, But to Richard, did it seem like I was ordering him around? Still, it was all for Richard's sake. Everything I've done for Richard was denied by the very person I did it for. That being said, I think the way he said it was honestly too much. Blaming everything on me and insisting I'm not the one at fault. And finally, I'm going to Alan's place where she'll treat me kindly? What kind of elementary schooler is he? I can't believe this is coming from a man who's almost 50 years old. Is that Richard's true nature? I admit my words and actions were bad, but looking back at Richard's attitude just now, my love for him cooled off all at once. Rather, he's head over heels for Alan, and it seems like he doesn't care about me anymore. That's when I realized, if that's the case, I'll just hand Richard over to Alan completely. If I do that, I might be able to get back at Alan twice over for all the grudges I've held so far. Recalling Alan's face when she laughed at me, I made up my mind. Next time, it's my turn to laugh. I'll get back at that woman twice over. Alan just came to the yoga class the next day as well. Just like yesterday, she looked at me with a smug expression throughout the class. That smile won't last long. I reassured myself and calmed my emotions. When the class ended, Alan approached me just like yesterday. Today, I have a date with Richard. I don't know why, but he stayed at my house yesterday, and now we feel like a real married couple. Oh, I'm sorry. The real wife is right here. If you like Richard that much, go ahead. He doesn't seem to love me anymore, so I'll let you have him. Alan, who wanted to see my frustrated face, looked taken aback for a moment, but that was short-lived. Well, giving up so easily is quite the defeatist attitude. But of course, he's already captivated by me. Weren't you married too? Have you talked to your husband about this? Huh? I can handle that flabby guy. I'm currently setting him up for an affair, and I'll use that as a leverage to break up with him cleanly. How despicable. That's what I thought. Taking whatever she wants and discarding it as soon as she's done with it. I feel so sorry for her husband. Well then, I'll really take Richard. Plain and dull women always lose, don't they? A woman like you can only look forward to a lonely old age all by yourself. With that declaration of victory, Alan left. Let her say what she wants. I had Richard write the divorce papers that day. Richard must have already heard about today's events from Alan. He signed the papers without asking any questions. And as I watched him, I thought about how anticlimactic the end of our once happy life together was. But I don't want any regrets. Before Richard and I changed our minds, we both signed the divorce papers and submitted them to the city office right away. Now I'm single. I rented a place nearby, and for a while I lived a comfortable life alone. That being said, I couldn't rely on just my yoga instructor income, so I had to dip into the savings little by little. However, while living alone without fear of the future, I was in touch with someone. All I had to do was wait for a reply. A few months later, Alan came to my yoga class, but this time she came after the class was over. As soon as she came out to me, Alan burst into tears and said, "What's wrong with that man? He was so cool at first, but as soon as we got married, he got fat and his skin got rough. Now he's just a regular chubby middle-aged man. And his salary is low too. I had high hopes because he worked for a famous foreign financial firm. What's going on?" I had been waiting for this. With a smirk in my heart, I pretended to console Alan and told her, "Don't worry. Listen, the reason he was slim and smooth-skinned until now was all because of my meal management and exercise guidance. But since he left me and you spoiled him, he just returned to his true self. That's the real Richard. And while it's true that he worked for a foreign financial institution, it was actually a subsidiary of a related company. I just exaggerated that part. Yes, even before we got married, I have been paying attention to Richard's diet, and I made him a very well-balanced lunchbox every day. Of course, I also made him eat dinner at home, so I was able to manage all of Richard's meals. I also made him exercise and use men's skincare products like lotion for his skin. That's how he was able to maintain his youthful appearance, which was hard to believe he was in his 40s. But that all disappeared when we divorced, and his new wife, Alan, just spoiled Richard. I'm sure she didn't consider nutrition when cooking and didn't make him exercise either. It's only natural that he would return to his old self with that kind of lifestyle. What? So that man was only put together thanks to you? What's that? Don't worry, with your love, he can become a wonderful man again. But I don't really care. No way, I don't need an old man like that. You take him back. I was truly amazed at this woman's nerve treating people like objects. But of course, I had no intention of going back to how things were. Sorry, I've already found my new partner. Here's what he looks like. I showed Alan a picture of my new partner. The man on my smartphone was a tall, gentle-looking guy wearing a lawyer's badge. Wow, what a great guy. Hey, I'm more suited for him than you. Let's trade husbands, okay? Now it was my turn to burst out laughing. Why don't you ask him yourself? Please marry me. Please go back to how you were, because this man is your ex-husband. No way. How did that chubby man become such a great guy? You're lying. And I can't forgive you for being with him. She still said things like that. I was dumbfounded. I wasn't lying at all. After I divorced Richard and started living alone, the person I kept in touch with was none other than him. Of course, I was in contact with him to take revenge on Alan. First, I dramatically changed his appearance through my diet management and exercise guidance. This was, of course, to later make Alan feel regretful. However, this revenge was only the first stage. The second stage was yet to come. Did you forget that your ex-husband is a lawyer? I already told him that you fabricated his affair. I think a compensation claim from him will arrive at your place soon. What? That's a lie. Oh, and from me too. I filed a claim for consolation money for having an affair with my husband. Of course, I have the strongest lawyer, your ex-husband, on my side. I could hear Alan's small scream, but it was too late. Oops, I almost forgot Richard got his current job back thanks to a connection at my yoga studio. I told that person about what happened and they were very disappointed. Who knows what will happen to Richard's treatment now? Alan seemed to be at loss for words. I left Alan standing there and elegantly exited the classroom. Serves you right. She had taken so much from me, even stealing my husband this time. This was a deserved punishment. After a while, Alan had to pay a large sum of compensation due to our lawsuit. She sold the luxury tower apartment she had won in her divorce and now apparently lives in a cheap apartment with Richard. As I predicted, Richard's salary decreased even more after being demoted, and Alan had to find a part-time job. Some of my yoga students work at her part-time job, so I naturally talk about Alan there. Everyone says, "What a horrible woman. Teacher, you went through so much. We'll make sure she gets what she deserves." I wonder what kind of guidance we should give her. I'm looking forward to it. They say various encouraging things. As for me, I happily remarried Alan's ex-husband. Thanks to my dedicated diet management and exercise guidance, he has transformed dramatically from his previous overweight figure to being featured in magazines. Due to the effects, he now has an increased number of legal requests and is struggling to keep up, but he is so happy about it. Unlike Richard, he listens to my various advice and appreciates it. That's why I'm even more motivated to cook for him every day. Oh, and that tower apartment Alan gave up is now where we live. From the window of the tower apartment, Alan's apartment seems so small that it makes me laugh. My revenge is now over. From now on, I plan to live a peaceful and happy life with him.